December 1924, Indianapolis, Indiana. Clessie Cummins stood in a machine shop watching a truck engine that every expert said would destroy itself. 34 years old, former chauffeur turned engineer, barely a high school education. The engine in front of him weighed 1,800 pounds and burned fuel nobody wanted. The gasoline truck parked outside could do everything this diesel prototype promised, only cheaper, lighter, and without the bone-rattling noise. And his own investors had called the project a waste of time. But Cummins, what they didn't. America's roads were changing. Trucks were getting heavier, routes getting longer. Gasoline engines worked fine for short hauls and light loads, but push them hard enough, far enough, heavy enough, and the numbers stopped making sense. Fuel costs ate profits. Engines overheated. Maintenance never stopped. Diesel changed everything. The fuel itself cost less per gallon, and in the engine squeezed nearly twice as much work from every drop. Where a gasoline engine wasted energy through spark plugs and throttle losses, diesel used compression ignition. Pure thermodynamic efficiency. Rudolf Diesel had proven the concept 30 years earlier in Germany, but the engines were massive. Industrial beasts meant for ships and factories. Nobody had successfully shrunk one down for a truck. Nobody in America had tried. Cummins tried. And he'd been obsessed since 1919 when he convinced banker William Glanton Irwin to fund an engine company. 5 years of failures, prototypes that seized, injection systems that clogged, fuel pumps that couldn't maintain pressure. Every test revealed another problem, and every problem cost money. Irwin barely had patience to keep spending. The truck sitting in that Indianapolis shop in late 1924 represented something different. Cummins had partnered with Packard Motor Car Company, is adapting their heavy-duty truck chassis to accept his diesel engine. The engine itself displaced 330 cubic inches, produced somewhere around 40 horsepower, and turned at roughly 1,000 revolutions per minute. Those weren't impressive numbers. The comparable gasoline engine made more power, weighed less, ran quieter. But power wasn't the point. Economics was the point. If Cummins could prove the diesel engine would run reliably under real working conditions, if he could demonstrate the fuel savings were real and repeatable, then the weight penalty and noise didn't matter. Truck operators cared about one thing: cost per mile. The test route stretched from Indianapolis to Chicago and back. About 300 miles round trip, most of it on rutted two-lane roads that turned to mud when it rained. The truck would carry a full load, no special accommodations, no support vehicles following with spare parts. Just a working truck doing working truck things, and burning diesel instead of gasoline, and keeping records of every mile, every gallon, every hour of operation. Cummins knew the gasoline engine baseline. Similar trucks averaged maybe 6 miles per gallon on good roads, less with heavy loads. Fuel cost about 25 cents per gallon. Maintenance was constant. Oil changes every 500 miles. Spark plugs every 1,000 miles. Valve adjustments, carburetor tuning. The costs added up fast. See that subscribe button? It's our exchange, your way of saying, "This reached me." Not about the action's size, but its meaning. Hit it if this resonated, drop a like if it moved you, and comment your thoughts on this story. Let's complete this circle together. The diesel truck made the Chicago run in January 1925. Weather was brutal. Temperatures dropped below freezing, and diesel fuel in that era had problems with cold. The fuel would gel, clog the lines, starve the engine. But Cummins had to modify the fuel system, adding heating elements that drew warmth from the engine coolant. It worked barely. The truck completed the route. Fuel consumption numbers came back better than expected. The diesel averaged close to 10 miles per gallon, sometimes more on flat sections. Diesel fuel cost about the same as gasoline per gallon, but the truck traveled 60% farther on each gallon. The math was simple and devastating to gasoline's dominance. About over 100,000 miles, the fuel savings alone would pay for the engine's higher initial cost. But America didn't care. Truck manufacturers looked at the diesel engine's weight, its noise, its higher purchase price, and said no. Fleet operators wanted proof beyond one truck making one trip. Oil companies had no infrastructure to distribute diesel fuel to truck stops that barely existed anyway. The entire system was built around gasoline, and nobody wanted to be the first to change. Cummins kept testing. He modified engines, improved fuel injection, reduced weight where possible. By 1927, his diesel engines were running in trucks across Indiana, logging thousands of miles, proving reliability. The data was there. Diesel engines lasted longer, used less fuel, required less frequent maintenance once they were properly sorted out. But the industry moved slowly. The breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. The Depression hit in 1929, and suddenly fuel economy mattered in ways it never had before. Every penny counted. Truck operators running on thin margins started looking at those fuel consumption numbers with new urgency. A diesel truck cost more up front, yes, but over its lifetime it saved thousands of dollars in fuel alone. Cummins demonstrated the point with brutal clarity in 1931. He took a diesel-powered truck on a cross-country journey from Indianapolis to New York City, and then turned around and drove it back. Nearly 2,000 miles. The entire trip cost less than $12 in fuel. A comparable gasoline truck would have spent close to $30. The story made newspapers. Suddenly, diesel wasn't some exotic European technology. It was American ingenuity saving American money. Truck manufacturers started paying attention. Not everyone, not immediately, but enough. By the mid-1930s, diesel engines were appearing in heavy-duty trucks from multiple manufacturers. Cummins wasn't alone anymore. General Motors entered the market. Other companies saw the same opportunity. The infrastructure followed. Fuel stations started offering diesel. Maintenance shops learned to service the engines. The entire ecosystem shifted because the economics made it inevitable. The transformation took decades to complete, but that 1924 prototype in Indianapolis started it. Cummins proved diesel could work in trucks. And he proved the fuel savings were real. He proved American engineers could adapt European technology to American roads and American needs. The internal combustion engine didn't disappear, but diesel carved out its territory. Long-haul, heavy loads, working trucks that measured success in cents per mile. Clessie Cummins died in 1968, 44 years after that first experimental diesel truck. By then, diesel engines powered hundreds of thousands of trucks across America, and the highways that didn't exist in 1924 now carried 18-wheelers running diesel engines descended directly from his early prototypes. The interstate highway system, the modern logistics network, the entire structure of American commerce moving goods from coast to coast, all of it ran on technology. Cummins helped pioneer when everyone told him gasoline was good enough. The original 1924 prototype is gone. No museum has it, no archive preserved it. It was a working truck, and working trucks get used until they're used up. But the specifications Cummins recorded, the fuel consumption data he documented, the patents he filed, those survived. They tell the story of an engineer who saw past the immediate problems to the inevitable solution, and who had just enough stubbornness to prove everyone else wrong. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from and what truck history you want to hear next.